Welcome back to the DB990 restoration channel. For those of you new, my name is Barry. Today I've got the little door shut, I've got the big door shut, and you'll hear the big door rattling like hell because it's worse than the other day. It's absolutely blown a bloody hooligan out there, and it's in between showers. So what we're going to start and do, we're going to make the gearbox oil tight. Today we're going to put on the three-way valve, the delivery pipe and the end stop for the delivery pipe. Okay, the next move after that will be to put the rock arm in and get that sealed up, but not necessarily the settings on the quadrant control set up. And then finally we will put on the quadrant so we can operate the lever and keep the lever in one position while we're testing this. Because at the minute I cannot, even though I've put the PTO on, we still cannot put oil in the gearbox, because the instant we start it, it'll come flying out of the open-ended pipe at this side for the three-way valve. It will come out of the pipe at the back. Will it come out of the pipe at the back? Yes, it will come out of the pipe at the back, because as the pipe goes from the little four-way junction inside the axle to the ram, the outside of the ram lift cylinder, so oil will come out of there. So we just need to block off all the holes so that when we come to fire this engine up again, we can check for leaks, we can solve our leaks, but we don't get gallons of oil pouring all over the floor. And it would be nice as well, get this engine back up to temperature again, which I can't do till I put oil in the gearbox, because that clutch stop brake band needs to be lubricated. And it will be lubricated with the pump running and the return oil from the valve chest going through the system, through that feed pipe to the oil, to the clutch stop brake band. Right, let's have a little look on my bench, see what we've got for today's activities. So what we've got here, got my three-way valve chest, 4 securing bolts. So we've got an O-ring to go in this port. We're going to take this paper off. This is still being masked off from when it was painted, but O-ring goes in here. This port goes to the lift cylinder, so the oil flow comes into the delivery side, out through this side into the front half of that lift cylinder to create the oil pressure in the lift. As I say, there's an O-ring goes and sits in that port there. As you see, there's a nice bit of oil, because when I built this back up, I put a reasonable bit of oil into the body just to keep everything right, and it just saves you having to take the bits and free everything off again, doesn't it? So, well, lovely new O-ring. And all you're looking for there, get a ruler, or we'll get a rule, shall we say, not a ruler, a rule. What you're looking for is protrusion across the top, so that you get a crush when you tighten in your retaining bolts. So we'll just have a little bit of grease whacked on that, push that into position, put a bit of grease on those faces. Okay, next thing we're going to do, pull the tape off this connection. This connection is for the delivery pipe. Delivery pipe goes on there. and that goes on the other end. Get rid of some more rubbish. Okay. As I say, this has all been just put away in storage. And now we need to secure the gearbox so that we can pressurize that oil system, look for leaks, deal with any leaks, and there will be. Don't expect to put this back together. What have we got in the hole? One ear plug. I use them all the time for plugging up little holes like that. Okay, I'm going to leave the tape on the thread on the top. I haven't found the button for the top of here yet, but we will find that. Okay, I've got here, this was a kit that I bought when I was busy putting the camel's humps and the pipework to the camel's humps to the valve chest, and I bought that kit. It is CHN in Genuine Parts Kit 916387K. Right, it came with a gasket, came with a good selection of different O-rings. Now the O-ring for the hydraulic pump was part of this kit, and that was the one that was, it's probably one of them, it was one that was, the cross section was just too small, so I had to buy a 3mm cross section, 5/8 internal diameter, 3mm cross section for to put the hydraulic pump back on with, just to give it that bit of bite. Okay, let's get set up down on the tractor and we will get my hydraulic valve put on and my pipework. Back in a minute. Right then, here we go. Got my 4 bolts, my O-rings still in position, my O-rings in position on the delivery tube from the pump. I want to get a bit of grease. I've wiped this clean because this was, again, since it was installed, this was covered in grease. So as you can imagine, it's picked up a bit of debris here, there and everywhere. Right, let's offer the valve up. This isn't a mammoth job, but it's one that's got to be done because it has to be sealed in order to fire up the gearbox. As I say, I would really love to get this engine ran back up to temperature again. Right, now 9/16 those heads. Tighten them diagonally, not that you probably need to, but wherever you're putting or trying to get even pressure on something, it always helps to have a plan, doesn't it? Okay, now what we need to do, put a delivery tube on from here up to here somewhere, put my cap on the end. Let's get a hold of that. Okay. Let's have a little, whoa. Tell you what, let's have a little bit of grease on them threads. And we'll put the remainder of the grease on those threads. That wind, a bit rough today, isn't it? I think it's rougher than it was the other day. Okay, let's get this all sorted out. And I'm only going to finger tight these because here we don't know where this pipe is going to end up on. I'm sure it ended up on, let's have a look here. Ah, yes, it ended up on the end bolt for the draft control unit. Let's have you lift it up a touch. Right. So we'll put our connection, our quick connect end onto here. And I say that obviously ended up fastened onto the draft control unit there somewhere, didn't it? Okay. We've got a bit of cloth. Get a little bit of cloth. And what we'll do is we'll just put that little bit of cloth in there. Like that. Just sort of sitting on there. Let's see, they're going to remain finger tight there and there, and we'll leave them finger tight, and as we fire it up we will nip them just to take out any of the leaks that's in there. Now you guys will not be able to see this. Tell you what, let's get my phone, see if we can get you down in there. Down in here you can just see it there, covered in grease. That bleed nipple is for bleeding the air out of the lift cylinder. Behind that nipple is a ball that sits into a recess in the casting, and when you tighten the grease nipple it pushes the ball in to seal it, like a valve. As I say, you can see you can get in there from here with a spanner just to crack that sufficiently to bleed off the air out of the top of this cylinder. Little question for you guys. Three-way valve. Count this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, it appears to have 4 positions. Now, can anybody tell me why it would have 4 positions? Or is one of those 4th positions 1 or 4 when the spool wouldn't be doing anything anyway? Because at some point one of the positions has to allow oil from the input port to the output port to fill the cylinder in here. The follow on from that is to block the oil to this cylinder and allow the oil out through this pipe to come to the lift. So if you had a trailer on, you would then lift the trailer by putting that in a position. But you then have to release that oil back through the same pipe back into here through that. So is that why there's 4 positions? Is it position 1 is a flow to the cylinder? No, there would be 3 positions, wouldn't there? Position 1, flow to the cylinder. Position 2, flow to the pipe to lift. Position 3, release from the cylinder back to the sump. But then, what is position 4 for? Is position 4 a neutral where it doesn't do anything? Where it doesn't allow oil into here and it doesn't allow oil into here? If you know, guys, let us know. So next job is the rock shaft to go back in. That's a fairly big job because I have to remove the front end of this quadrant control, and we have to at least move backwards the valve chest and the selector valve body, so we can slide the shaft in and get it into here and get the casing on. Okay, let's get set up for that one and we'll crack on. Back in a minute. Right, second part of the video. I was going to just quickly strip out the valve chest off camera and do the second part of this video of installing the rock shaft. But then I realised I haven't really got a good video of stripping out the valve chest anyway, have I? So, second part of this video will be taking out the valve chest from this side of the tractor. And the follow-on video will be putting it back in with the rock shaft attached. I thought that would be more valuable to you. Right, let's get set up doing there. Let's get this valve chest ready for installation or reinstallation. Back in a minute. First thing we're going to do is remove the cover from here. This is your descent rate control, which attaches to your needle valve inside the valve chest. Now if you remember right, we didn't put this on with grease or anything. This just purely went on dry because we knew this was coming off again. We'll get these 4 screws out and we'll get my little magnet tray, pop them in there. That's just your controls, I say, fastens onto your needle valve. Right, let's have somewhere safe, clean to put that for a date. Okay, next job. In here we need to loosen and remove this little nylock nut with the spacer. There is also another spacer behind this arm on the rod and a spring. So when you remove this, be careful. You don't want to be dropping them, you don't want to be losing them. So let's have a look at that. Get that out of there. 7/16 that. I thought I tried that on before because I thought I had that finger tight, because you got to go through the whole setting up process with it. So very carefully remove that, remove the spacer. As I say, there is another one behind this. Arm in here. Can we get it? No, we can't till we remove this. Okay, now 1, 2, and the awkward one, 3 to remove. Again, 7/16, 1. I'm doing this blind. One out. Now the other one is real awkward. Let's try a small straight extension on that. Now then, do you know why it'll not fit on? Because they're not 7/16, a 1/2 inch. That's why I was having trouble. That's because I didn't have my glasses on. There we go. Ding! There's me. My second spacer. And me spring. Right, let's carry on. You cannot get your hand in to turn that bolt by hand, at least not from this side of the tractor. You might be able to do it from the other side of the tractor, if you could get to the other side of the tractor. Slide that off. Take that bolt out before we lose it. Put it in my tray. Right, we'll put the handbrake back in that before we reassemble. That needs a trim, doesn't it? Yeah, that's not good. Okay, now, so to remove the valve chest, we need to take out, can we say this? We need to take out the dump valve. Careful, because there's a doughty washer. Now, if you're taking this out for the first time, there will be a spring, a plate, and a ball down that hole. Mine aren't in yet because I've still got them in the bag over there. So when you're taking that off, be mindful of those components are tiny. The spring's not, but the ball and the plate is. Okay, next job. Loosen these two bolts here so move the manifold block, and then we need to release this screw here for the return pipe from the valve chest back out to the gearbox. Okay, let's have a look at that. What are they? 9/16. I'll reach in there and get them. Behind that manifold block behind that manifold block is 2 rubber O-rings. Oh, that just nipped up again. That seal the manifold block to the valve chest. And this here is your needle valve. Now you can't get your needle valve in or out if you have this manifold block on the front. You have to put the needle valve in first. One. Now there might be a bit of tension on the pipe work. Just be aware of that as you're taking this to bits. I think I had to lever this into position. Make sure you keep your washer on as well. You don't want to be dropping anything down into the bottom of the axle. Okay, done valve out, manifold block off. Now we've got the return pipe to deal with over here. See if we can get round this side. 2 1/2 inches. There's a lock nut nearest the casting, and it's turning the big nut on the inside as well, which I believe was 3/4, wasn't it? I think the big one was 3/4. Yes, it is. The big one's 3/4. And it's very thin, which gives you a bit of a problem when you're trying to get a hold of that other one. Let's see if a pair of pointy nose pliers will do any good to it. Yeah, just enough. Just a very orthodox method there. Loosen that off. Now, the book says take this out 9 turns, which will free the pipe from inside the block. I think that's about 9 turns there. See the brass there? That's the end of the start of the return pipe out the side of the valve chest. You might need to put a screwdriver in there and just tease that away a little bit. Be careful when you go in here, because you don't want to knock this pipe out of its socket and into the bottom. Having said that, you can get in through this hole to recover it. Right, okay. Okay. What we need to do now is remove the back plate so we can get in here and withdraw the valve chest after withdrawing the 4 big nuts and bolts that keep it in. Okay, let's have this back plate off. Again, there wasn't an awful lot of pressure put on these because that's it, I knew everything was coming to bits again. Again, as usual, these gaskets for the back and front, I just hammered them out. Put these ones on dry. Right, so now this leaves with 4 bolts through the casting. 1, 2, 2 underneath. One. As I say, if you drop the pipe into the sump, into the axle, it's not the end of the world, because you can put your hand through the hole and recover it. Okay, now we should be able to slide this out carefully. There we go. And by God, it's heavy. Okay, valve chest out. We do not need to detach it from the selector body, so we don't need to upset any of our settings. What we need to do is we need to get up to the other storage area, bring back the rock shaft. The rock shaft cover is in there. I need to make sure I've got all my nuts and bolts, and then we will set this up for the rock shaft to go back in and the valve chest on. That way we can get this cap on, we can get that end sealed up. Can we then put oil in? I think we can. We don't need these axles in, because we're not going to put that much oil in. I just need enough to get the suction on the pump to work. So we'll get a return, we'll get a feed to the clutch stop brake mechanism. One last thing, gents, before you go, inside this casting, inside the casting, the handbrake casting, the quadrant control casting, this little yoke here where the push rod from your valve chest comes through with the spring in the first spacer, comes through this hole here, that is not attached into that yoke. So you can get that into a position like that, and that does come out. It does slide back and forward, it does come out. Careful you don't lose that one as well. You see here I've got a split pin attaching the yoke to the quadrant lever. Now I've got all the bits for the quadrant. I might pull that to bits actually and make the quadrant up. You see on my valve chest with 2 O-rings still in place there. Make sure they are. Again, not a catastrophe if you drop them, but they have to be in place when you put it back together. I would have loved to have hydraulically tested that valve chest before I put it in, but I simply cannot afford the power pack, the hydraulic power pack, to do the test. So it's a suck it and see. If it doesn't work, it comes back out, and we'll have to try and diagnose the faults from there. I wouldn't care. I've got a spare hydraulic block for the front of that in my box of goodies. All I need to do is cut the ends off the pipework, blank off one end, put a fitting on the feed end, and if I had a hydraulic power pack we could have tested that. However, Lance has got a really good video. I'll put it up here for you. Lance has got a really good video on testing that with a power pack and what to look for. As I say, pop it up here, go and have a look at it. I just wished I could afford that power pack and I cannot. Right, gents, I'm going to wrap it for this video. We'll tidy up here a little bit. I'll have a search about. I'll make sure I've got all my nuts and bolts for tomorrow, because the last thing you need is to get that shaft halfway in and find you ain't got nuts and bolts to secure it, and then try one-handedly or hoping that you can balance it somewhere while you look for bolts. So I'll spend about another hour here looking for bits and pieces. We'll get it sorted out. Hopefully tomorrow we will do this part 2 of this video, where we're putting the shaft and the valve and everything back in, as well as that handbrake system. Alright guys, thanks very much for visiting. As always, your time is greatly appreciated when you come to see what we're doing. Remember, don't overthink it. It's only nuts and bolts. See you in the next one. Bye now.